thankful you're.
Me too. I bet I'm even more thankful than you. So, you don't think about these things as being particularly, the surgery was what, an hour and a half maybe, and it's one of those that went through the neck. So, it's like no big deal. They use that reverse anesthetic. So you wake up and, I was out of the hospital before 24 hours was up, so, but then, so you think, oh, this is really no big deal. And of course, I've been doing it for years and da 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 da. But every time I mention that I've had neck fusion surgery to people, they kind of freak out, and they go, ooh, I'm going, okay, I guess I should be more scared than I am. But I was scared anyway. It's just interesting. You learn a lot. Okay. So let's just find our minds and invite them to join our bodies in this room.
Glad to hear you feeling well. Are you getting better at sign language? People ask
No.
you how you are, you say.
Well, I do that a lot. That's true. It's a much shorter thing to text. So really try to let your breath ease any tension you might be holding in your body. Let it soften your face, your shoulders, allow yourself to feel grounded by touching a chair, a cushion. And try to bring to mind the reason you decided to show up this morning. And generate an intention to use your time well based on that reason. And combine it with a wish that it not just benefit yourself, but that it's going to ripple out to benefit those around you. And bring to mind some people in your life that you want to benefit. So we'll recite the four measurables, these people in mind, while trying to kind of expand our circle of concern so that slowly, we can embrace a large circle of all sentient beings into our heart. Okay, so it's on, if you can't read the screen, it's on page 34 of the Gold Prayer Book. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. All right. I have trouble swallowing. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. So those are the minds of compassion and love. Oh, and the next.
You skip the compassion, I guess.
Did I say not say that one?
We did the first
No.
and the third.
Okay.
Sorry,
They were in the wrong order. No, it's
I'm
So-
scrolling too fast.
I'm reading too slow. Okay. So I see now. Okay, so we said may all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. That's the mind of love. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. That's the mind of compassion. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. So this is being joyous about others' joy. It's about the wish that beings achieve a state where they're never separated from the mind of happiness. And then finally, equanimity. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And this is that idea we want to expand out. So it's not that we just care about people we like or people who help us or people in our families or people, in our immediate circles, but that we really want to develop this mind towards everyone, whether we like them or not. It doesn't have to change whether we like them or not. It's just about recognizing the fact that these are fellow beings that suffer, and how much better the world would be if no one was suffering. So then we'll recite the refuge prayer for those who are comfortable doing so. It's on page 98. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Thanks, Nana. Hi, Veronica. Hi, Esther. Hi, Sherry. Hi, Tal. Hi, Don. Hi, Abby. Hi. So, what's on people's minds? Anything on anybody's mind? Have you noticed if anything's on your mind? Developing bodhicitta. So how do we do that? What is bodhicitta first?
Desire to attain enlightenment benefit of all sentient beings.
Yeah, that's the definition. It's a particular mind that once you attain it 24/7 all the time, you're a bodhisattva. So that's what's meant by the word bodhisattva, that you've got a mind that's infused 24/7 with the desire to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. What does it include? It includes an open heart, universal concern for all sentient beings, the desire to help all sentient beings. So it's often confused with just merely compassion, but it's more than that because it involves needing the wisdom as well as perfect compassion to become enlightened. So, and why do we want to become enlightened? Why is that a foremost goal for bodhisattvas? Well, we can get out of samsara without becoming completely enlightened. I know I'm making it difficult for you, Sharon, but so what is the difference with complete enlightenment besides what's the other word?
Liberation.
Liberation, thank you. What's the difference? Not that it's super important for those of us who are ordinary beings and not anywhere near this stage. Okay, and why does omniscience help?
Because that's how you can be the most helpful.
In fact, it's the only way to be perfectly helpful to every single sentient being. It means you know exactly what is needed to help guide each sentient being liberate themselves from suffering. So that's why that's a goal. Until you have reached that, you can only imperfected, I can't talk.
Imperfectly.
Thank you. That's it. Imperfectly help others. Now, does that mean we can't help others until we're completely enlightened? Yeah. In fact, the only way we become completely enlightened is if we try to help others. So it's one of those things we have to have courage to do it, even though we don't know how to do it perfectly. Have the wisdom to know when to stop because we're not doing it perfectly, but to keep developing our wisdom and our hearts so that we can get better and better at it. And mostly more and more inclusive. It's the universal capacity of our hearts that's so important that we have, when we can keep opening. Because as you can imagine, just as, if you're older, that so many of your life experiences have deepened your ability to understand people, yourselves and others, because you now have a variety of experiences. In the same way, the more people we include, the more variety of experience we have with different sufferings and the way people experience them so that we can be, of more help to a vaster array of beings. So but it takes that confidence and courage that says, I would rather be of help than to stay nice in my little safe place over here and avoid the suffering of others. Because there's nothing about helping others that's necessarily fun. But can there be joy in it?
Oh, yes.
So that's a real important distinction. We want to really separate our ideas of what is pleasurable from what is joyful and meaningful, because they're not the same. So that inner quality of feeling joyful, content, confident, is not the same as eating ice cream and cake and having sex, as far as I remember. So it's this understanding that it's nice to have things you enjoy in your life. There's nothing wrong with that. But that doesn't give us much except little momentary reprieves to escape whatever mental suffering we have. And how long do they last? You know, how many people have put a taste of something in their mouths that's just heavenly? You know, you just go, wow, this is good. But before you swallow it, you can't stop thinking about the calories in it or the heart clogging attributes of it. You know, it's like, and both are true, right? It's delicious and it might kill you, but it's, you know, it's this is what samsaric physical sensual pleasures are about. They're temporary, they change, they are really the suffering of change. You know, you have a little bit of dissatisfaction, so you go, oh well, I'll go give myself a treat, you know, and that treat is nice, and then, you know, okay, you've had enough of the treat, and so now you need something else. You know, we just flip-flop back and forth. So, but when we're looking for something to give ourselves meaning and feel purposeful and to have that sense of okayness at the end of the day, we need more than uh, little bite-sized treats all day long.
Some tea.
Mm-mm. They cut into my neck. So and they move everything out of the way, you know, like yeah, everything. Let's scrunch it over here so we can work on your spine. Like it's a little beat up. So anyway, don't offer me grapes. Thank you. So I was listening to an author today who wrote a book called, I'm going to get this wrong. Let's see. Well, we're just going to have to wing it and get it wrong. You can see my resistance to that. It's called Joyfully Just. Only I'm not sure if that's what it's called. It's something like that. It's justice and joy. And it's about how to take Buddhism. It's written by a Buddhist. She's Nichiren Buddhist, which I know nothing about. It's a Japanese tradition based on the Lotus Sutra. But she's talking about how much joy there is when you are using your capacities towards justice. And even though it's very difficult and you enter into places of great suffering when there's injustice, the joy of that arises from knowing that you're part of a solution, no matter how small, no matter if nothing changes, how sustaining that is, and how that gives you more energy than trying to ignore all that's wrong with the world. So it was kind of a nice reminder that a bodhisattva's path is into the heart of suffering. You know, the Buddha taught the truth of suffering, not how you can avoid the truth of suffering. Talked about how you can end suffering, but again, not how to avoid suffering. Because there's the truth of suffering. And being able to handle suffering, be able to face suffering head on and develop the skills and the confidence that says you can handle it. How much support that is to your mind, to your being. So that then it gives you energy. So yeah, that's something to really think about. You know, how draining is it to stay in avoidance? Because what does it mean to avoid? What do you have to do to avoid?
I guess sometimes you have to put on a facade or pretend it's not there. And then I suppose it suggests too that it is present and you're going out of your way to avoid it. So you're thinking about it, ruminating perhaps.
And every time it comes up, what do you have to do?
Think about something else.
You immediately run for your Joyfully Just. Did I say that was the title?
Yeah.
I found it. Yes,
Got it.
it is Joyfully Just. Yay. Okay. By Camilla oh yeah, I can't do anything justice to that. Majid.
Magic.
I don't know. I did, yeah. You know how good I am at sounding out words. I failed that in second grade and it's still true. So even in the act of avoidance, we expend energy. You know, we make sure we don't turn on the news. We make sure we don't read the newspaper. We make sure, you know, that as soon as someone, you know, like we avoid conversations with people, do all kinds of things to just stay out of it, stay out of it, stay out of it. What's part of that energy of wanting to stay out of it? What?
It's aversion.
Aversion to it?
Like a self-centeredness.
Well, I would say so, because
Yeah.
why would you want to avoid it? Because you don't want to feel it.
But then you also have to, I mean, it also requires some self-awareness to know what you are capable of tolerating too. You know, like sometimes you avoid something, it's skillful to avoid it.
Of course, but first you have to find that out,
Right.
and you can't find it out by avoiding it. So it takes courage. It takes courage to just kind of go, well, at least I can look. Like particularly, I mean, we can't do it all, can we? Drat. We can't do it with the hope of success. Why? Why did the Buddha say we can't? You're way over there, Roy.
This is my state.
Okay. Well, don't abandon your station by any means. So,
We're still in samsara.
because we're still in samsara. What was my question?
Why can't we?
Do it all. Right, yes, because we're still in samsara. So what does that mean? Or, you know, enlighten us.
Nothing's gonna be.
Right, because that is the definition of samsara. Samsara is just a word that means we're uncontrollably trapped in a cycle of birth and death due to our disturbing emotions and karma. It's not a place. It's the manifestation of our mind, of our states of mind, our unskilled states of mind. It's not a manifestation of our Buddha nature. It's a manifestation of our Buddha nature contaminated with ignorance and all our disturbing emotions. So samsara can't be fixed. What can be fixed? If you want to look, use that word, it's not the greatest word. Yeah, our body, speech, and mind. Okay. And from that, we become a condition for meaningfulness, for happiness, or, we're not a condition for suffering, which means we're not a condition for others' suffering. We're not creating suffering when we transform our minds towards what will lead us to enlightenment. This is why when you become enlightened, you manifest a pure land. Because now your mind generates a pure land. Pure lands don't have anything wrong with them. Yeah.
You mentioned that.
Can you speak up for me,
Yeah.
Graziella?
You mentioned that you can't avoid suffering by hoping for success.
I said, when you try to muster the courage to, instead of avoid suffering, but to face suffering, you can't do that with I mean, you can do it, of course, because we do. But to do it with the expectation of being able to fix the suffering, change the thing, that's an obstacle. We have to have the courage to do it in spite of not being able to fix it. Doesn't mean we can't improve it. You think about all the leaders throughout history that have managed to make a mark on society and all the people that helped them make that mark in society, and things have changed. Did they fix anything? How are we doing so far? Is everything as bad as it ever was? No. Somewhere in the world it is. But no, things get better. And then they get worse. Yeah, it's cycle. So if you want to share something.
No, I was just thinking about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Get better.
Yeah. So, so when we have to face, the Buddhists, we need to face suffering. We need to realize the truth of suffering. And then we want to realize the truth of the cause of suffering. And what's the cause of suffering? Don't you love these pop quizzes?
The mind.
You mind?
Ignorance,
Yeah, and
ignorance, attachment.
Okay, so it's not just the mind, because our mind has Buddha nature. Buddha nature is not the cause of, what was I asking? Suffering. Cause of suffering. I think I lost some of my mind in this process. Okay, so right. It's the contamination that we need to get rid of. It's the pollution of our mind. That all starts with our self-grasping, which is our ignorance. It's our mistaken understanding of how things actually exist. It's that holding on to things as independent, permanent, that there's something that is the nature of me that, has always been here, always will be here, da, 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 da. And instead of that, we're constantly changing moments of body, speech, and mind.
So I guess the problem is that we cling to it, create and perform actions that kind of continues the cycle of samsara. Yeah, and I understand it's like, the ignorance, attachment, and aversion that are the causes of it. But I guess how does that keep us in the cycle? Is it because it kind of propels us to do?
Because it continues that process of attachment, aversion, and we grasp. Attachment leads to grasping. Aversion is just the flip side of attachment. It's the same thing. It's wanting to be separated from something you don't like. And we grasp at that. You know, that grasping at a self that never existed to begin with keeps us propelled in this cycle of birth and death. Now, realizing the truth of that takes developing our concentration, developing our wisdom, being able to analyze how things exist, you know, and lots of effort, lots of merit, you know, so we can remove our obstacles to it. What helps us remove the obstacles? That helps. What else though? What's the biggest purifier?
Regret.
Positive action.
Ding, 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 ding.
Wisdom and practice.
Say the question again.
What's the
Emptiness.
biggest purifier?
Emptiness.
Bodhicitta, yeah. It's bodhicitta is the greatest purifier. What's bodhicitta?
Wish to attain enlightenment for the sake of.
Being Buddha-like.
Compassion.
No, it's exactly what there's a definition. This isn't rocket science. This is a definition. It's the wish to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. What does that take?
Wisdom. Takes compassion.
Yeah, it's two wings of a bird. So
Are you on pain meds?
no, none.
She's just in pain.
Yes.
No, I'm just a pain. So, okay. Yes.
Yes.
So is that something that we could be grasping at?
What?
Yes.
Bodhicitta.
You'd have to pervert it to grasp at it, which is, of course, exactly what we do. Okay. Yeah. You know, if you have bodhicitta, you're not doing that. Because you can't do it. They're two contrary states of mind. There's nothing. What is attachment? What does attachment do? What's the definition of attachment?
You want something and you want it now?
You exaggerate.
You're exaggerating the good qualities. Definitions really help, partly because we have different meanings in our own culture about these words. It is exaggerating. Same with aversion. Aversion is exaggerating the negative qualities. Attachment's exaggerating the positive quality. You cannot exaggerate the positive qualities of bodhicitta. It's 100% positive. Just like you can't exaggerate the good qualities of a Buddha. Does that mean we can't grasp after a Buddha statue or a teacher? No, because we're good at these things. But what we're not doing is actually grasping at a Buddha. We're grasping at our relationship with the Buddha or our relationship with the teacher, or grasping at our opinion of this or that. You know, I mean, we have to, you have to become very precise so that you can see where you're going wrong. So it's the grasping isn't, first of all, it's not in the object. It's our action. Object doesn't have it. It's not coming from the side of the object, even though I could swear chocolate has it. It's not there. Doesn't matter how many times I indulge in it and swear it's in the chocolate. It is entirely in my lack of control. Totally. It's that I'm choosing to keep saying happiness is in chocolate. Slowly.
What happens when the chocolate runs out?
I haven't found out.
That would be enjoying the moment.
Yes, that would be.
Enjoying the chocolate.
It's also recognizing that as good conditions are, and it's pretty much what we all need in order to make progress on the path, are good conditions so we can meet the teaching, so we have free time, so we can, do all those things. We also have to watch the traps of it. So one of my good conditions is it's very rare for me to not have access to things I crave, So I have to actually choose to not follow the craving, which is great practice, if I do it. This is why they say people who are in great suffering states, not a great place to practice because they don't even get that far. They're just trying to survive, Whereas we actually can go further than that and say, okay, yeah, I can have chocolate whenever I want. Is it the smart thing to do?
Is that temporary and like suffering temporarily?
It's if I indulge in it, it's like a momentary, oh, isn't this nice? And it's a ripening of good karma. We enjoy things. It's an effect of the
Are you
positive.
saying you avoid chocolate altogether?
Do I? No, not on your life. Not on my life. Yeah. I'm very upset though, because I've learned that now I can't eat a handful of M&Ms without feeling sick. So obviously I'm going to probably, maybe if I live long enough, have to give it all up. Thank goodness for dark chocolate. It says less sugar, Anyway, so this is how we kind of defeat ourselves, isn't it? We keep trying to manipulate the objects into some form that's not so harmful. So we can have more of it, and distract ourselves from the real work, which is taming the mind. Is that hard to say? Taming the mind.
Hard to do, hard to say.
Both.
That's what, yeah.
Yeah, Venerable Tendron, there's a quote I always come back to. I don't know if it was Lama. Yeah, I don't know who said it, but they're talking about, I think we all have this, we know, right? Happiness isn't some sort of, we act like it is, and we think to ourselves, well, maybe if I put it like this, and if I fix things like this, and then we keep chasing that, and it's not there, but.
But we have the habit of believing this is what ignorance does. Ignorance thinks that objects actually hold something for us. If we can control our environment, if we can control the people around us, we can get it right. It's not possible because things don't exist that way. Nothing in the universe can you experience the same way every time. So it can't be happiness. Because if it were, it would always make us happy. And nothing does. Which is why I was really shocked when I took a handful of M&Ms and felt sick. You should have seen me give up hot chocolate. Because it's like, but I love the hot chocolate. It would make me sick every time I drink it. And I'd go, this can't be true.
What else did I eat?
Yeah, this is what happens when you give up everything else,
What
like
about
sex.
slower, what about slower indulgement of chocolate? You're taking it like a reward,
Well, that's sort of like,
help craving a little bit.
I'm sorry.
Wouldn't that help teach craving?
No. Yes, it would help teach craving. And that's the trouble with not noticing that we give into craving all the time. And not saying, well, I'm just not going to give into that craving at this moment because I want to learn how to tolerate the discomfort of not having. That's so important to us being able to handle the truth of suffering. Because one of our issues, one of the ways we use the things that we enjoy is to placate ourselves because we shouldn't have to suffer. I'm suffering, so I don't like it, so I'll do something that I will like, as if we can avoid the suffering. And we keep doing it, and we run like maniacs trying to earn more money so we can even get bigger things that might help us avoid those moments of suffering. Everybody suffers, no matter how rich you are, you can't buy yourself out of suffering. But we really think we can. And we really think if we control things and control people, that we can. And what we really need to do is learn how to control ourselves, our own mind, and recognize the error of logic we're making when we keep putting into the object attributes it doesn't have. And that's what ignorance is. We mistake reality for as it is. We really think things are independent. We know intellectually they're not. We know everything's impermanent. We know that. This is not hard. Kids might, it's a process of learning that. But we learn that. Things don't last forever, blah, blah, blah. But we still, when something appears to us, when we look at it, we forget all that. At the first moment, we see this this conventional reality of a cup. Immediately, we superimpose onto it a permanence. We're not thinking about it, but we act as if it's, always been there, always will be there, da 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 da. Not if we think about it. So when you turn to pick up something that you're used to being there and it's not there, we experience loss. It can be teeny tiny when it's a cup. It can be major, major big when it's a person.
Lost your cup for a while.
Yeah, I know. I didn't like it one bit. And we have reasons, don't we? This cup is important because it keeps my water cold. And cold water is important because I like it. Because I get hot easily. So who's creating the suffering in that scenario? Yeah. And that's just how we actually interact with everything. It's a simple example, but it illustrates how we're interacting with everything. We're expecting things to be as we expect them to be, and in addition, as we want them to be. And when they're not, we try to manipulate it so they turn back, or they never were that, but So we have to really pay attention to what we're doing in our minds. Oh, look at me. I'm demanding the world not make me wait. I'm demanding the world that I shouldn't have to suffer. I'm demanding the world that, we do this. Have you ever been whenever you get impatient, have you ever realized that what you're demanding of the world? It's really kind of funny. I find it hilarious when I look at my mind and go, oh, I really think that when I come into a store, all lines should dissipate. So really, if you take it to the extreme of what we're thinking, when we kind of go like, what are the lines? Why are other people shopping when I want to shop? Why are the people driving when I'm on the road? We want to be aware that that's actually kind of where our thoughts go, and see how humorous it is. Because it's silly, and yet we suffer because of it. Because we get mad if we're late because everybody else was on the road too. Not because we left late. So when you have good conditions, there's a tendency to expect more good conditions. So when those good conditions are interrupted by something, like inconvenience of some sort, we kind of take exception to that.
It's funny, like when in the teaching, when they say that the God realms, you don't want to go there because you're so blissed out that you're not.
There's no reason to practice
But
Dharma.
we have a similar sort of situation. It's such a fine line.
Yes.
Having good conditions. I've worked at several different hospitals and chunks now, and at Boca Regional, the
This
patients,
wonderful facility that I was at.
but a lot of the patients, you know, are more accustomed to getting things,
want.
what they want. And they literally, you can see their tolerance for pain and, no, really legitimately, like if you're looking at it objectively, like in a study, that they suffer more than at some other hospitals where people are quite used to not getting.
And what's that about?
Expectations.
Tolerance. We have not built our tolerance. When we constantly give in to our cravings, and we constantly can, we develop an intolerance for even the slightest
Discomfort.
discomfort. So that's why the Buddha says, you know, don't do it that way. You know, I mean, that's why monks and nuns have all these vows to help us develop our tolerance for not having control of what we get. You know? And then what do you discover?
You didn't need it.
There's freedom in it.
Absolutely.
I'll never forget being in Australia in these robes. And where I lived in Australia, there was no heat, there was no air conditioning, you know, and it was in Queensland. So it was in a hotter part of, it wasn't in the hottest part, but it was in the hotter part of Australia as opposed to Sydney and places that are closer to Antarctica. So and I'm living in a nuns community and I'm going to teach. I mean, it was fabulous. I can't tell you how fabulous it was, but it was also hard. And I was hot and I sweat. I'm not a graceful female with,
You don't perspire.
I get drenched. You know, I wore ice packs around my waist so that, you know, I could tolerate it, you know. Just, I had to take allergy pills when I was in high school because I grew up in New Orleans, same climate. My karma's great. Because it would get so hot, you know, I'd get sick, you know, and I don't do well. So in Australia, same thing. Well, I can't tell you the freedom there is when you sit there and realize, well, like you're going to go back to the house and change. I have nothing else to wear, you know. I wear different things in Florida because, hey, I'm not living in a nuns community. And so, you know, I give into that craving. This is, you know, but the freedom of going, can't do anything about it. So sweat. It's incredibly freeing. It's like when when you hear a teaching on the same subject for like the 3,000th time, and you're kind of like really thinking, oh God, you know, really. Well, when you're a nun and you're hearing that teaching from your teacher and you don't get up and leave. You don't go, God, when are they going to talk about something new, you know? So you have to stay. Oh, ow, I shouldn't tune my neck that way. Okay, so so when you sit there and you realize, okay, I'm not going to get up and leave. So what can I do?
Try and hear it.
You pay attention, you meditate. And then you go, oh yeah, I don't know all this. I may have heard it all before, but I have not realized any of it. So, you know, so you get over yourself. You know, that ego, that massive grasping that says, I already know this, you move on, you know, and you let more in. And that's so freeing because then you're not resisting what's going on. And that's the trouble with avoidance. Yes, we can avoid a lot of stuff. It doesn't help us at all handle anything. It doesn't help the world. You know, you just check out at what's going on. Doesn't help anything. You know, you're not part of any change that might happen.
And it seems like you could just shut down or just like, oh, my vacation's in 1 month from now, so you just sort of just close off or something.
Yeah,
It's not
as if
bad.
yeah. We try to act like we can live our life in segments, like we often, because we do have different roles. We have a role at work, we have a role at home, we have, then all that kind of stuff, but they're all our life, So if we want to live our lives, we want to be present for all of it, not just the good parts. The most meaningful times in our lives are rarely eating chocolate. It's a whole full rich thing where you're learning something, or maybe you're sharing it with another, where there's just it's more than that. It's not just getting some sensory relief. We need those reliefs. They talk about it in the path, the power of relinquishment, which means you've been practicing diligently, or you've been contemplating things, you've been helping others, but then you need to rest. That we also need to rest, and we do need to know what our capacity is. We need to kind of go, okay, I need rest now, and then you need to be able to go, hey, that's enough rest. And then we need to be able to go, I could have stretched myself a little further. And then we need to know, I stretched myself a little too far. It's a learning process, and it changes. It changes depending on your health. It changes depending on the people around you and their health. So it's not I know that I've always had this desire to finally get it right. Oh, I finally have the right job. I have the right partner. I have the right this and that, and like as if that's going to stay. And it isn't. What we need is we need resilience. We need tolerance. We need to be able to go with whatever's happening. Because it all changes, right? Things that were easy to deal with in our 20s, when you can barely get out of bed in your 70s, it's just sort of different. Oh, and then things when you can barely get out of bed in your 70s, that you couldn't have tolerated in your 20s are easy now. And, I mean, it's all a big bag of stuff. But there's joy in living congruently with your values. There's joy in discovering that you have things to offer. There's joy in developing the confidence that facing the suffering is better than avoiding it. There's avenues for joy that, due to our ignorance and due to the society we've created, we're constantly being told there's a way to just take a break from it. Do you remember those commercials about, I don't know, I think it was MasterCard. You have to be kind of old. But, I mean, I just remember these commercials were like, you could just charge your way out of suffering. Yeah. It's just, I remember this commercial where this woman's walking through a office building lobby or something with gray hair, and they're going, really, do you want to go through your life looking like that? And then of course they color her hair. I have no comments. Anyway, so we're constantly bombarded with messages that say, you can gloss over this. And if you have good conditions, you have access to many of those methods. They just don't work. That sense of dissatisfaction that permeates our lives is not going to be relieved by covering up with something. Accepting, like you said earlier, accepting that samsara, through suffering, that doesn't have anything to do with your peace of mind. You know, it really isn't what happens to you. It really is about how you respond. You know, so learning that there's something to, you know, like, you know, we get jarred by unexpected events, you know, but then as we, you know, let ourselves, oh, okay, so this is what it is today. We don't get so jarred. So as you can imagine, you know, and those of you who may have the experience, you know, if you're raising, you know, 4 boys or something, you know, I'm picturing my personal nightmares, you know, you're a single mom raising 4 boys, you know, and you have to work full time, you know, and, you know, who knows what's going to happen, you know. The people who are in those circumstances and they don't kill all their children, they're learning ways to cope, you know, without killing their children. So, or shooting the, you know, the principal at school. Sorry for violent examples. It's just, you know, sometimes that's how I react to things. I was so grateful when I got into my 20s that my parents never took me out in the backyard and shot me when I was younger. Like, oh, that was very kind of them. And I wasn't a troublemaker. I didn't, you know, I didn't break rules. I was too chicken to break rules or anything, but I had a mouth and I was not very nice to my mom, you know. So, I mean, I could yell at my dad too, but somehow that was different. But it's, you know, but I wasn't nice to my mother. And, you know, and it's really like amazing that she, like, you know, did anything for me at all. Because I didn't, you know, give her anything at all. So, and parents are dealing with that kind of stuff all the time. And that's part of this idea of helping others is not dependent on what you get. And anybody who's raised teenagers or a child who's sick, you know, knows that you're not in it for the rewards. There's just something about the relationship, that utter dependence upon you, and the fact that you're rising to that occasion most of the time. You know, there's something very meaningful about that. My stepmom, who's 95, got a pacemaker this week. I don't know, it was maybe a year ago. We always have a serious talk on one visit. You know, we don't agree on anything, so we try to discuss something. You know, and she's really good at it. And so we were talking about something that about, you know, I'm sure it was deep and meaningful because, you know. But at the end of it all, she goes, "Oh, I really hope my kids understand that they're what gave my life meaning. I should call them up and tell them." You know. So I hope she's done that. I've tried to remind her, have you ever done that? You know, so, you know, this week when I thought she was going to die, you know, I thought I need to tell her children. She said that to me. You know. And it's not about, you know, oh, they all turned out to be great kids. It had absolutely nothing to do with any of that. It has to do with the sense of of relationship. It's just, it's not about success or, I mean, anything. It's the fact that they're still involved in her life, that she's still involved in their lives, and they matter to each other. And they accept the fact that it's imperfect. And they're not perfect kids, and she's not a perfect mom. It has nothing to do with that. Yeah, it's a shock, isn't it? It's a shock.
Sounds nice.
Yeah, took a swing at one of the nurses this week.
Maybe they were asking for it.
I'm sure they were. It's no doubt in my mind they were. So,
Venerable Tendron, you said there's joy in finding the confidence to confront things. Say confront, address the things that you're avoiding, and to live a life, face them, and living a life in accordance with your values. And is there joy in them because they're driven by positive motivation, and or because they're that those mind states are based on an accurate view of reality?
yes, it's an effect. Yep. Just like the effect of our disturbing emotions is suffering, it's an effect of our positive emotions to have happiness. So compassion, love, and these are unbiased, compassion and love, they result in happiness. What form is that happiness? Not what we're used to. It's not that you get bigger rewards or something, It's that you have inner peace, the joy that comes from confidence, the joy that comes from being meaningful. It's just the result. How one of those days where at the end of the day, you've been helping others, or helping someone, and at the end of the day, you're tired, but you kind of feel good about it. It's that kind of thing. And when you perfect your mind where you're no longer grasping at yourself at all, it doesn't even come up. A bodhisattva it's so much easier for a bodhisattva. We really want to get there. Grasping after it won't work. But their self-interest never comes up. They're only set because what they know is it is in their absolute best interest to cherish others, because that's how they'll get there. So you accomplish your own welfare, so to speak, by trying to accomplish the welfare of others. So they don't wake up in the morning going, okay, what's in it for me at all? It doesn't come up. We get caught up in this thing like, but what about me? Yeah, what about you? What's that about? We really want to look at ourselves and say, really? You think happiness is going to lie somewhere there? Because even the state of seeking, but what about me? Does that sound fun at all? It's a state of lack. It's a state that says, I'm deprived. Please fill me. No one can fill you. That's an inner quality of being filled by what you do. And what we find out is if we just stand at the pump of liquid chocolate, it will never fill you.
They don't have that chocolate fountain at Golden Corral anymore.
I'm glad. You can see that's not a place I frequent, because I didn't know there was a chocolate fountain. So
Jack was asking about the grasping, a student said to His Holiness, I try to do good things for others, but then I'm afraid that I'm doing it because,
Yeah.
you know, I'm doing it for myself so that I look good and so that I'm getting the merit. And His Holiness said, well, if you're gonna be selfish like that.
Yeah. That's sort of how we had to start, right?
Here's
Right.
where we're here.
Yeah, you just start there. It's all right. And some of us don't have to start there because we started there in some previous life.
Right.
And we know people like that. They don't seem to need to look good somewhere. They just do it, you know, and someday we'll be those people. But it takes starting with where you are. And if where you are just, you know, that kind of feeling like, oh, I should do it. Well, then do it. You know, there's even a part of you that knows you should do it. And you might find out that it's a reward in itself. You know, the doing is the practice. It has the effect. It's creating the cause. And it's amazing how the less we worry about ourselves, the less we suffer. And isn't that we have less to worry about? That's not the thing. We have the same to worry about as everybody else. It's just that focusing on that just adds a layer of suffering because samsara is never going to get it right. So we'll have suffering. Things will come up. Things will break down. Why do all those things go wrong in samsara? What's the cause of the suffering? Don't forget to go back to what is the origin of suffering. Oh yeah, we've already forgotten.
Ignorance and misperceiving how these things exist. Thinking that
It's our ignorance of misperceiving how things exist. And what
Do Buddhists teach of sin?
I don't call it sin. It's what might be called sin. I mean, you'll see old translations that will use that word. It's not a very good word because it has connotations that aren't there in Buddhism. But negative actions lead to suffering. Positive actions lead to happiness. It's that simple. Truth is that which leads you out of suffering. Doesn't matter what tradition it is, whatever, you know, if it leads you out of suffering, you know, this can't be, I mean, we don't judge it by relative terms like, you know, oh, I'm going to have an affair and I'm not unhappy about it. Yeah. That's not the long-term effect. You know, we have to, that's why we have to study, because we can have really quite the wrong ideas of what is happiness. You know, we think that getting what we want is happiness. If we spend an awful lot of time educating ourselves to make sure that we'll be able to earn the things that will make us and be able to buy the things, you know, we really think that getting what we want will make us happy. And then it's somewhere along the way, most of us kind of go, well, that didn't work, you know. And so we start seeking maybe something more meaningful, or maybe we started that way because we had good training in past lives, you know. But it's this. So we mistake how things are to begin with, and that creates it. Just that right there, mistaking the way things. You know, it is suffering to think that things are permanent. When we see how thinking things are permanent is. That's gonna be suffering. How can that be suffering? Because they're not permanent. So when they fall apart, end, go away, if we think they're permanent, we're holding them to be permanent, we suffer.
That is that suffering of change.
That's the suffering of change. There are three types of suffering. What's the obvious one?
Suffering.
The suffering of suffering, physical and mental suffering. The not so obvious suffering, what we call pleasure, is the suffering of change. So we have an itch and we scratch it. And that little scratching feels good until it doesn't. And then we stop scratching. So we're just constantly, yeah.
What about learning to let the itch go away?
Right. Because it's not going to go away in samsara. What makes it go away is our mind, not just reacting to it. Oh, that's not perfect. Let's fix that. You know, like when a mosquito comes around. I had a meditation retreat one time, and one of the meditation sessions was right at dusk. Mosquitoes apparently like dusk. Well, I would have 5 every day. Be sitting there, and there'd be one at each ear, one at each nostril, and one that just was sort of flying around. And it was like, are you kidding me? I would just sit there going, really? Okay. So what do I want to do? Do I want to humiliate myself as a nun and get up in front of all these people and just scream running out of the gum? Do I want to swap them away? Hopefully nobody's looking and all this kind of.
What were your changes?
I hear that Louisiana, the state bird is the mosquito.
It is, but they're bigger in Toronto. I mean, or in Quebec. Montreal. I saw the biggest mosquitoes in Montreal during a drought. Anyway, mosquitoes aside, I had a point of that ridiculous story.
Third suffering.
The what?
Oh, that you're going through the suffering of change.
Yeah, the suffering of change, or, you know, then there's what's called all pervasive suffering, which is just the suffering of samsara. All of our bodies are the nature to fall apart. We created the cause for that, to have that kind of body, you know. So of course we're going to suffer. If we don't suffer, it means we got hit by a truck and just died, you know. I mean, 'cause I'm sorry to you. You know, I like to make it look better than that, but it isn't. So, you know, the only good death is a quick death. I don't know. Anyway. Oh. I don't mean to make fun of the human condition, but it's kind of funny. So all pervasive suffering is the fact that samsara is the nature of suffering. Expecting to not suffer in samsara is ignorance. Okay, so we have to deal with the suffering, you know. So, and I could have gotten up from meditation, you know, from that sitting, you know, to just, I can't deal with this, you know. I could have, like, perhaps even done Tonglen, you know. Oh, I'm so happy, you know, I'd love to remove the suffering of these mosquitoes. That can't say that occurred to me. Okay, you know, but this is, you know, you work with it in some way. So who makes the choice not to get up and leave the room? I did. So what did that mean? I was stuck with those stupid mosquitoes, right? I chose to stay there. Did I resent the mosquitoes for being there too? What's the logic in that? The mosquitoes aren't holding me down. I was still bigger than them. I could have swatted them. I could have killed them. Who chose not to do that? I did. So I have to live with my choices. I can keep resenting the world for, hey, look, I made good choices. Cooperate and leave. You know, that's just idiot thinking. And it's suffering for no purpose at all. You know, as opposed to accepting, oh, so this is what it is. And did I show up again? Yeah, I showed up for 2 weeks. Did that happen every day at dusk? Pretty much.
The same 5.
Oh, I doubt that. I think they have a lifespan of 3 days. So, you know, do I think I'm the only one in the room that had that problem? I mean, this might be true. You know, but I mean, it's hardly the point. You know, I'm lucky that I had little mosquitoes. I could have had a raging headache, or, you know, some terrible back issue, or, you know, my foot could have gone to sleep and then started to cramp. You know, it's all minor.
Spiders.
Yeah, it could have been a spider. They grow big. So, yeah, it could have been a spider. But anyway, so the point is, something's gonna come up. As it's samsara, something's gonna come up. And if we focus on that and not on anything else, all we're gonna do is suffer. And that's a choice. So we can either rejoice and, oh, this is an opportunity to develop my tolerance, and I need that. You know, and we have options. And we do have agency. I mean, I literally could have gotten up, walked out the room, not told anybody why that was. You know. And was it because of some really good reason I didn't get up and walk out of the room? What do you think the reason is?
Well, it depends. If it was that you were too embarrassed to get up and walk outside of the room.
Yeah, let's
or
call,
if it's,
what's that word? Pride. My pride kept me. So sometimes pride works to your advantage. You know, it's like, you know, this is the thing. So we just, you know, these are little meaningless examples. They're just examples of how something always comes up. You know, you wake up in the morning, you go, the elevator's broken again. Okay. You know, you go out to your car, the tire is flat. Or you didn't get enough gas, or you don't have enough gas, and you didn't give you enough time to get gas. I mean, there's always something, you know. Sometimes it's because of you not being observant and not taking care of things. Sometimes it's because the world, you know, there are other people in it, and they're going to get in your way. You know, and we can either embrace that and say, ah, I'm part of this huge community that has very similar experiences. You know, everybody on the road pretty much wishes everybody get out of their way. We're kind of like that, you know, and we can be amused by that, you know, in the sense of, you know, like I'm in it here with you. I know how you feel. So, you know, but we want to have the courage to face suffering instead of constantly put band-aids on it or avoid it, you know, because the way to happiness is cherishing others. You know, so we want to work towards that. And that means helping others. And who need the most help? You always sit in the hot seat, Randy. I'm proud of you. Oh. How are y'all at home? We just, all right. We're all good enough. That's a start. Okay. So now take a moment to just see what this idea of, you know, like facing suffering, benefiting others is the path to happiness. See how that might, at those kinds of thoughts, what that might do to what you do next. How can that impact what you do next today? You know, so think about what's your plans, and then try to set an intention to use the time for those plans well. You know, so you think about the reason why you're doing those things. And it's even possible to say, you know, I was going to do those things, but you know, now I'm going to do something different. You know, that's always a choice. But mostly we want to, you know, recognize that we have the ability to bring a kind of a state of mind with us when we do anything that enhances our ability to benefit others. That remembers that what gives our lives meaning is others. And just take a moment to just imagine, just using your imagination and your knowledge. You know, think about all the people out there in the world who are doing something different this morning. And think about all those people who were helping someone else, you know, in whatever way. Those in the medical field are helping people in a particular way. Those in war zones are helping people in a particular way. Those in a neighborhood might be helping people in a different way. You know, all these different possibilities. And the fact that right at this moment, there are countless beings helping someone else, whether it's with a smile, whether it's with an action, you know, and just think how wonderful that is. That you can be 100% certain that that is happening. And in many different varieties. I want to practice focusing on that rather than focusing on the fact that there are people who need help, because samsara is suffering. So yes, there's suffering happening all the time. And there are people rising to those occasions all the time and helping others. And how wonderful that is. And sometimes that person is us. And all the things that we do enjoy in samsara, all those beautiful flowers and sunsets and chocolate, moments with children, you know, all of that is an effect of our positive action. So the next time you see something beautiful, you can think, how many beings created the cause for this effect? So we want to rejoice in our good conditions, because our good conditions are the result of positive actions, and we want to use them well. So we can rejoice in spending some of our time this way, like we did this morning, trying to explore suffering and the causes of suffering and how to get our way in the right direction and how to help others get freed from suffering. So, Nana, if you could put up the Shanti Davis prayers. It's called dedication. So what we're doing is we're dedicating our positive potentials, all the positive karmic imprints on our mind stream that are placed by positive actions. And we're dedicating all the positive actions that exist. It's more good stuff to be of benefit to all beings. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drink. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be free. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. And then for the long life of His Holiness, page something 244. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, it's on page 234 in your text if you need it. Fearless teach assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Bravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losam father and sons, along the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice. Never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, do I make request. While striving single pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings suddenly departed to peace, what a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of Bodhisattva of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Thank you.